Hi, folks. Thank you for coming out this evening and spending your time on this warm fall day with us. The time is now. Climate change is here. If anybody questions that, look outside. It's about to be November. It's extremely hot and muggy. I'm not enjoying it. I don't know about you. I like my nice cider. It's much more, makes me much happier to know that snow would be coming soon. So this is Dr. Button's fancy clicker. I'm going to see if I can make it work or not. No clicker. Got it over there?
Oh, I thought you just did it.
I did. Okay. It's going to line up weird. Sorry about that. So the average person uses 10 kilowatts a day. We use more energy now than ever in the history of mankind. We have managed to create all types of ways to use energy, and we have not spent much time figuring out how to save energy. We have not spent much time figuring out how to use better types of energy. We're going to talk about that really briefly. Wasted energy equals climate change. Fossil fuel-based energy, or burning fossil fuel to heat, cool buildings, generate electricity, drive our cars, or any other way that we use fossil fuel, heating food, taking a shower. There's lots of ways that we use these things that we really don't think about. Your tablet, your cell phone, your TV, your washer, your dryer, pretty much anything you do is using energy. And all of that is what's contributing to climate change. That's what's melting the polar caps. That's what's releasing the methane from the ocean. It's all really caused by us using fossil fuels. It's filling the ozone and heating the earth at an enormous rate, as Dr. Button has very simply explained to us. But what are we doing, and why is this happening? I'm trying to make it as simple as possible because climate change has become a very complicated topic in many rooms. But it's actually a very, very simple topic. Simply put, we dig up things from the ground that were put there millions of years ago. We blow up mountains, we drill, we frack, we turn things upside down, we create all types of pollution and create all types of harm in the process of doing it. And then we take it to a power plant and we burn it. And we pollute in the process of getting it out of the ground, we pollute in the process of burning it, and all along it is contributing to climate change. If you talk to someone and they don't believe in climate change, that's okay. They don't have to believe in climate change. You could simply just explain that we've blown up the earth and that there's pollution in the water and the air that's caused by digging, drilling, fracking, and burning things. All of those things are not arguable, so they don't even have to believe in climate change, even though it's very, very real. This energy is then transmitted to the point of use. Generally, it's a business or a house or a school like we're in today. But wherever it is being transmitted, it's being used by humans. Animals aren't using electricity, and they're not living in heated buildings. Or they're not also using air conditioning, and generally, I've not seen them driving cars as well. So we can contribute it to ourselves. Why is that important to think about? Because when you start to think about who's using the energy, the end user, you realize that it's actually us. So about this energy, renewable versus non-renewable, there are other ways that we could use other sources of energy. We could use renewable or non-renewable. So these are the non-renewable categories of energy. There's coal, there's oil, there's gas, and there's nuclear there. Nuclear is also non-renewable, although it is a carbon neutral fuel, because during the process of creating energy, it is carbon neutral. But in order to get that nuclear fuel, we had to actually dig, drill, and blow up things, the same as we do for other fossil fuels. Uranium is what we use to create nuclear energy. It has a very long shelf life, like forever. And so the nuclear waste that is created by generating electricity is bad, but also there is radiation that comes out of the process of just digging up the uranium to generate the electricity. So over the last 30 years, I like this statistic because it's a shocking one, and it's important to have some shocking facts. I think it's good for us to know the truth. Over 500 mountains have been destroyed to extract coal. I've had this slide for 10 years, and like Dr. Button said, in the 1800s they kind of had an idea this was coming, but in the 1970s they were absolutely 100% sure that climate change was real and it was caused by burning fossil fuel. This one I learned in 2010, before I started working on climate. The first time I saw this, I cried. That was a mountain. And in order to get the coal, they literally just blow the mountain up, and it becomes a pit, and then there's these open mine ponds that hold the toxic waste, which are generally kept near water sources that sometimes give way and then can pollute entire regions. So I like to say, like gas, coal, nuclear, they're fossils and they should be left in the past, or like Frozen says, we should let them go. And here, let's talk about this locally. 95% of Connecticut's electricity is non-renewable. 95% of electricity in Connecticut is non-renewable. So I bring that up because we've been expanding nuclear and gas in Connecticut as a way to defeat coal. Coal was the really sad thing we were fighting originally. That was the fossil fuel that we first named a bad fuel, bad, dirty coal. And we renamed things like gas, like natural gas. Although it's natural, it's just a fossil fuel. Also, coal is natural, so is oil, by the way. So thinking about it that way makes you realize that really understanding where our power comes from and how we use our power and how we could do better will help us to change our path and avoid the most horrific parts of climate change. Because we're already on the path, climate change is here, but what can we do to mitigate it now? So this is the way forward, right, folks? I mean, renewable resources are clearly the better choice. They are renewable, meaning that they're going to be around forever. We don't have to frack for them. We don't have to dig things. We don't have to blow things up. And they have a much lower pollution rate than the other forms of energy. So why aren't we doing anything about it? We've known about the problem for a long time. We're pretty sure that it's us causing the problem. So what can we do now that we're here and we've taken this evening to be together? Well, there's a couple things that you should know so that you can be informed and talk to others and make some changes. The first thing to know is that a lot of energy is wasted just being transmitted to your home through power lines. About 10% is lost in transmission. That's because we've created very large grids for our energy, and so when it's getting from the power plant to our homes or buildings, it's just lost along those power lines that we see as we drive everywhere. The other part to know is about 10 to 12%, this is a growing number, is wasted by this phenomenon called the phantom load, which I've renamed the phantom draw because I find it better to think of it as a sad character who's stealing all my energy. So this little guy here is the one that is working on things when you're not paying attention. Your cell phone charger is plugged into the wall, and your phone is not plugged into that. Your computer charger is plugged in. Your television is plugged in. Your television doesn't even have to be on. There's all those blue, green, red lights on things. There's your clock on your stove, on your microwave. There's like glowing clocks everywhere now, right? So all of those things are actually drawing 10 to 12% of our energy. So right now we're at like 22% that's just been wasted. So all of that stuff we digged and drilled and blew up and burned in a plant somewhere to create electricity was just pretty much thrown in the trash, just wasted energy. We didn't even use it. So it's really important to think about the way we're using energy, because if we don't, how can we change our path forward? Other factors that contribute to climate change, and the reason why I throw this in here is because there's a lot of discussion. People will say to me like, oh, we should eat less meat. You should. It's true. We should drive electric vehicles. You should. It's true, right? All of those things are very accurate. We should be moving towards policies that draw down carbon emissions in transportation and all of the sectors that we use energy. Agriculture uses it, and production of goods and services. All of these things use energy. So we need to address all of those things. But when you look at this date, which is from the Environmental Protection Agency, and it explains where these factors are to climate change. Electricity and heat production is 25%, and buildings is 6%. Transportation is 14%, agriculture is 24%, and industry is 21%, and other is phantom, 10%. So, all right, heating and cooling. As we can see, it's a huge piece of the pie. This is something that is totally manageable. It's something we can address right now. It is a low-cost way to lower our carbon emissions immediately, and it works. And there's lots of studies outside on the table. Locally, one in Windsor was Loomis Chaffee. They did a challenge at their school, and they drew down their consumption by 32%. Just that simply. They also saved about $21,000 a year in energy bills, and they used some of that money to install a huge solar plant, because their goal is to be carbon neutral. So it can be done. Why don't we focus on heating and cooling? It's not cool. It's not sexy. No one thinks about it. Everybody wants to focus on other things instead of focusing on the simple thing that we can actually just reach out and grab today. The effects of climate change, I think Dr. Button did a great job with that. I'm not even going to bother, but it looks sad. It's scary. That's the idea. You want to know that this is really happening, and it is very dramatic, and it is happening at a rate way faster than anyone had anticipated. So we really need to be taking action now. We cannot continue to wait on this issue. The effects of climate change are extreme. and very real. Just recently, we had a big announcement about the mosquitoes carrying diseases here in Connecticut, and there was a lot of schools that had to cancel practices after school. That's going to continue to be a problem. Ticks are on the rise as well. Vector-borne diseases, as they're called, are going to be a real serious issue, along with lack of water, lack of food, high energy prices, sea level rise. I mean, all of this stuff is happening today. Is there hope? Yes, there's hope. There really is, and that's the good news. Even though things are bleak at this moment, certainly there are things that we can do right now today. And if we work to keep the temperatures below a 2-degree rise, we can avoid 89% of flooding and 76% of crop decline and 41% of water stress. Those are good things to do. So why aren't we changing? This is my kids. Why aren't we changing? Everybody here probably knew climate change was real, right? Because the people who don't care about climate change probably didn't show up tonight. So then what is it that is keeping us from making the changes that we need to make? I know for me, I didn't really know a path forward, and even though I was very worried, I wasn't sure what to do. It was overwhelming, it's complicated, and the science is like very scary. But once I knew about the problem and how it was going to affect my own family, the next thing I thought was, I need to let everybody know how real this is and get everybody involved and evoke emotion in everyone around me so that we can all work together to make a difference. So now that I know that this is something important, I need to make a difference, I want to know how to slow climate change, and I want everyone to take a stand for the people on the planet. Because frankly speaking, as far as I know, there's only this one planet that we have. And I live here. I like it, you know? I would like my kids to live here. I'm not really into going to Mars. Elon Musk can have it. So, what can we do? Well, we have to spread the word around, and we have to join with others who are working on these issues. So, before I get into how to directly save your energy, I just want to say that there are a lot of groups that contributed to being here tonight, and they all have a path forward. Together, they're working on this, on how to advocate effectively, on how to change policies around us, on how to talk to our leaders and our communities about climate change. And I would encourage everyone here tonight, if you're not already part of one of those groups, Connecticut League Conservation Voters, or CHISPA Connecticut, or Sierra Club, to join one of those groups today. Sign up and at least be informed on the policies and the rapidly changing energy structure of our state and of our nation. Those groups have their fingers on the pulse of what's coming and what we can do to influence it. And so it's very important to be in contact with those groups who all day long pay attention to what bills are coming out, because everyone's working and it's hard to pay attention to that. So it's good to be connected to groups who pay attention to those type of workings in the world and who understand them and how to influence them as well. So saving energy draws down carbon emissions. Using less energy saves money, and it protects people on the planet. And lucky for us in Connecticut, we have a path forward for that. Our legislators enacted a law, 1820, that says they're going to take some money off of our electric bills and put it in a big pot, and then we can use that to help us draw down our consumption at home, at work, and in buildings and schools. Everywhere we can use this services. This is what carbon emissions look like in Connecticut. This is the Connecticut GC3 report, and it shows you transportation, electric power, residential. So this is our state report on how we use energy in our state of Connecticut. I put it up here to show it exactly as it is in the report, but on the next slide, I'm going to break it down for you. This is the same exact slide, and all I've done is label what the bars are. The big bar is transportation, which looks awfully terrifying, and it is. But the other bars that are connected together are buildings. That's residential buildings, industrial buildings, and commercial buildings, and the generation of electric power to power those buildings and the things in those buildings. And I did it this way so that you could see that carbon from buildings is 31%. The next thing to know is that when you combine electric generation with buildings, suddenly buildings and electric generation are 50% and transportation is 35%. This is an important fact to remember when you're having discussions later on about climate change, because actually the buildings and the people in them and our electric use is bigger on carbon than transportation. This is the 2016 data from the United States of America on end use of consumption by user. The blue is residential homes. The orange is commercial buildings, the green is industrial, and the yellow is transportation. And you will see that just residential homes and transportation are equal. This is for the state of Connecticut. This is federal data from 2016. Our GC report was actually based on 2014 data, so this is updated data. Okay, it's also affected to money. So the more energy that we use, or our peak demand, is what sets the cost of energy that we all pay for both electric and gas. So the more energy we use, the higher the price is, just like any other law of supply and demand. And the less we use, the less it costs us. Over 400,000 residents in Connecticut cannot afford to keep their lights and heat on. It's a terrifying fact, and it's real. And the more that we use energy and waste energy, the higher that cost will become. Whereas if we draw that cost down, we will have a much lower cost of energy and a much lower cost of carbon, which I think the carbon is a little more important, but some people would like to talk about economics. So the good news is that drawing down waste will save both money and our lives. We could save 6 lives every day just by reducing our energy consumption by 15%. As I mentioned earlier, Loomis Chaffee reduced theirs by 32% in 2 years, and 15% would lower, in Connecticut, 30,000 asthma attacks a year, avoid $20 billion in health harms, and save $73 per person. So if anyone questions the economics of doing good things to draw down energy waste and slow carbon emissions and fight climate change, you can let them know that economically, it's the smart thing to do. So I'm going to make sure that everyone has access to this, but this explains the State of Connecticut's Energize Connecticut program. And what it does, it explains that they come out to your home, they see where your house is at, they check for safety, they test your heating and cooling systems, they fix your systems if needed, they air seal your home, they give you a full report on what you could do, they give you rebates and incentives to insulate your home, to replace your windows, to get LED lighting, to get solar, to put in updated domestic hot water heaters. In fact, they have a nice one right now for domestic hot water heaters. And then they educate you on other ways that you could save energy. And if you can't pay for it and you qualify, you could have it for free. They service homes, condos, and apartments, schools, businesses, any type of building with a B. This program will help you. It will help you lower the cost, and it will help you lower your waste. So I want to leave you with this today. Education and motivation equals advocacy, and that equals change. And I think that's very, very important to remember. It's our daily actions that influence the environment, and our choices will equal our success or our survival. Motivated people make changes, which is why we're all here together tonight, to try and motivate others after we leave here, to make the changes that we need to have the world survive in a path forward that is acceptable so our children can live here and our grandchildren can live here. And we should utilize every program and person to get involved locally and change our programs statewide, change our outcomes statewide, and then we can work forward from there and be a model for the nation. The problem is not too big, and I really believe strongly that together we can actually make a difference. We have to start with ourselves and then work our ways out from there. You can call Energize Connecticut and sign up for an energy assessment. You can tell other people about climate change and tell them how to fight. You can provide your own ideas and support the mission of carbon reduction and energy waste. You can get involved with climate groups and learn more about the climate work that's being done in our state with the GC3. And the other things that I think are extremely important, and tonight actually Chiefsville was kind enough to set up a voter registration booth outside. If you haven't already registered to vote, might I suggest that you do, and if you know people who aren't registered to vote, please encourage them to register to vote, because in all seriousness, it is our plans and policies that will lead forward our future. And someone's following me.